Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. When we talk about the Miami Dolphins offense, one word comes to mind: speed. TYREEK Hill, Jalen Waddle. These guys are track stars and shoulder pads. But what happens when that speed isn't enough? When defenses adjust, take away the deep shot, and force you to play bully ball underneath. That's been the problem. Miami has been lacking that third reliable weapon, especially someone with size and toughness. Enter Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Yeah, maybe not the flashiest name on paper, but this guy might be exactly what Mike McDANIEL's offense needs to finally hit that next gear. It's not just about running fast. It's about having someone who can block, move the chains, and make the tough catches. And when your offense becomes too predictable, you need someone who can do the dirty work. Westbrook-Ikhine just might be that missing piece in a very dangerous puzzle. Now, let's not forget the carousel of third receivers Miami's been through. Odell Beckham Jr. came in with the hopes of reviving some of his magic, but it never quite clicked. Braxton Berrios flashed in moments, but couldn't be relied upon week to week. River Craycraft? A solid rotational guy, but not a game changer. The Dolphins have had this consistent void behind Hill and Waddle, and it started affecting their offensive rhythm. You look at the film from last season, and you'll see it. Jonnu Smith, a tight end, ended up being a WR3 by default. Let that sink in. That speaks volumes about how desperate the team was for a versatile, dependable target. It made their offense more one-dimensional, and defenses caught on. Westbrook-Ikhine comes in not just to fill a gap, but to change the dynamics of how this Dolphins unit attacks defenses. Speaking of dynamics, Westbrook-Ikhine brings something this Dolphins offense hasn't truly had in years: size. At 6'2" and around 215 pounds, he's not just a big guy, he knows how to use his body. That's a game changer, especially when your primary receivers are under 6 feet and rely mostly on separation through speed. Westbrook-Ikhine plays through contact, shells defenders, and wins those contested balls that Miami's smaller receivers tend to avoid. And don't underestimate the psychological effect that has on a defense. When you've got Hill sprinting past your safeties and Waddle cutting up your nickel corner, now you've also got to worry about a big body guy punishing you in the middle. That forces defensive coordinators into tough choices, and McDaniel will love that chessboard flexibility. Size isn't everything in the NFL, but when you add it to a speed-heavy system, it becomes a weapon. Now Westbrook-Ikhine isn't just a receiver. He's a football player. The guy blocks like a tight end and lines up like a slot receiver. He's physical, he's smart, and he understands leverage. One clip from his Titans days shows him cracking down on a defensive end in a toss play. Textbook execution. That's the kind of thing that goes unnoticed in highlight reels, but wins you games. It's no coincidence McDaniel's offense relies heavily on outside zone runs and misdirection. For those plays to work, you need your wide receivers to engage at the second level. That's something the Dolphins haven't had. Last season, asking Hill or Berrios to block a linebacker was just wishful thinking. But with NWI in the mix, you finally have a guy who not only can do it, but takes pride in it. That's going to open up new layers in the Dolphins' ground game. And look, we're not saying Westbrook-Ikhine is about to put up Ween out on 200 yards and 10 touchdowns, but his value isn't about the box score. It's about the flexibility he gives the offense. Mike McDaniel has talked all offseason about finding a better balance between the run and pass. That balance doesn't just come from calling more run plays. It comes from having personnel who can execute both. That's where NWI shines. He can line up in the slot, block like a tight end, or run a route like an X-receiver. That versatility means McDaniel doesn't have to swap guys in and out constantly. He can keep the defense guessing. Is it a pass, a run, a screen? That kind of unpredictability is what this Dolphins offense has been missing, and it's what makes Westbrook-Ikhine such a sneaky good signing this offseason. Now, let's talk red zone. Last year, Miami ranked 16th in touchdown conversion rate inside the 20, middle of the pack. That's not terrible, but it's not what you expect from a team with this much firepower. Here's where Westbrook-Ikhine comes in again. He had 6 red zone touchdowns last year on just 9 targets. That's elite efficiency. And it's not luck. It's about how he plays. He doesn't need to create massive separation. He wins with positioning and hands. Tua doesn't need to thread a needle. He just needs to put the ball near him. That's huge for an offense that too often stalls out when things get tight. Having that reliable red zone threat could be the difference between a playoff push and a deep playoff run. If he continues that type of production, we might be talking about NWI as one of the steals of the offseason. You can hear it in Westbrook-Ikhines' own words. He's not here to be flashy. He's here to be reliable. That's exactly what the Dolphins need. He said, I'm trying to do the same things at a high level, be versatile, and just be a guy that they can count on. That's leadership without the spotlight. It's guys like that who glue an offense together. He's also dealing with a minor injury, so he hasn't had as many reps yet in off-season programs, but the team isn't worried. They've watched the tape. They know what he brings. And come training camp, he's going to carve out that role. He's not chasing stats, he's chasing contribution. That's the mindset of someone who understands what it takes to help a good team become a great one. Of course it's going to be a process. Chemistry takes time, especially in a timing-based offense like Miami's. But Westbrook-Ikhines has been in the league long enough to get it. He knows the nuances, he understands how to read coverages and adjust mid-route. Tua Tagovailoa is going to love having a guy who's always in the right spot. And that trust, that's what leads to targets in key moments. On 3rd and 6, red zone fade, middle of the field on play action, that's where NWI earns his paycheck. And if he earns Tua's trust early, don't be surprised if he becomes one of the quarterback's favorite options when things break down. That's when real connections happen. When it's not just about the play call, but about instincts and trust. And let's zoom out for a second. The Dolphins don't just want to be good. They want to be contenders. That means evolving. That means adding pieces that make the entire unit better. Westbrook-Ikhines isn't the star. He's not Hill or Waddle. But sometimes the guy who unlocks the offense is the one you didn't see coming. That's what he could be. He brings the grit, the balance, and the edge that this team has been missing. It's not about fantasy football numbers. It's about wins. And come December, when games get tough and the lights get bright, that's when guys like NWI show their value. Big moments, big catches, big blocks. That's what Miami needs more of, and now they've got it. So Dolphins fans, don't sleep on Nick Westbrook-Ikhines. He's not just a depth signing, he's a culture piece, a chess piece, a secret weapon for an already explosive offense. If Mike McDANIEL can unleash him the right way, we might look back on this signing as one of the smartest moves of the offseason. With a more balanced attack, a stronger red zone presence, and a new level of versatility, the Dolphins could finally be ready to not just win games, but dominate. And NWI, he could be the key that unlocks it all. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments, what's your take on the Fins this week? Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDANIEL, known for his calm demeanor and laid-back cerebral style, just dropped a bombshell that's echoing through the NFL. In an unexpected turn, McDANIEL publicly called out his superstar wide receiver, TYREEK Hill, labeling him undisciplined. That's right. One of the most electrifying players in the league, a game breaker with Olympic speed and elite production, is now under the microscope, not because of his stats or effort, but because of what McDANIEL sees as a lack of discipline on and off the field. And trust me, coming from a coach like McDANIEL, who rarely airs grievances in public, this is huge. Something behind the scenes has clearly been bubbling, and it finally boiled over. If you thought the Dolphins locker room was all vibes and speed, think again. There's tension in paradise, and it centers around one of the NFL's biggest names. Now let's rewind a bit and understand just how rare this moment is. Mike McDANIEL is not your typical hard-nosed NFL coach barking orders at players. He's a player's coach, a tactician with a genius-level football IQ who often uses humor and relatability to connect with his guys. He's built an offense that plays to Hill's strengths, maximizing his abilities in ways even Andy Reid didn't fully explore in Kansas City. So for McDANIEL to come out and publicly criticize Hill, it's like watching the cool teacher finally lose his temper in front of the whole class. And the timing couldn't be more intriguing. We're heading into a crucial stretch of the offseason, with training camp just around the corner. These comments weren't off the cuff. They were measured, intentional, and meant to send a message. The question is, why now, and what exactly? Triggered this? Sources close to the team suggest this has been building for months. Hill has always walked the line between confident and cocky, but lately his behavior has reportedly crossed into disruptive territory. We're talking missed meetings, freelancing on routes, and even skipping out on voluntary team sessions. That's not to say Hill hasn't performed. He's still putting up MVP caliber numbers, but it's what happens outside the stat sheet that's got McDANIEL concerned. The Dolphins are trying to build a championship culture, and culture starts with discipline. When your star receiver acts like the rules don't apply to him, it sends the wrong message to the rest of the roster. McDANIEL, who values structure as much as innovation, clearly sees this as a threat to the team's long-term success. And if there's one thing McDANIEL won't tolerate, it's a threat to the culture he's trying to build. What's even more surprising is that McDANIEL aired this out publicly. In the NFL, coaches typically keep this kind of stuff in-house, especially when it involves a marquee player. But this move feels different. It feels strategic. McDANIEL may be sending a message not just to Hill, but to the entire locker room, and maybe even the front office. The Dolphins have spent the last 2 years assembling a roster designed to win now. They've invested heavily in both sides of the ball, and expectations are sky high. But talent alone doesn't win championships. Discipline, accountability, and leadership do. McDANIEL is laying down a marker. He's saying that no one, not even TYREEK Hill, is above the standard. And in doing so, he's risking a clash with his most dangerous offensive weapon. It's a bold move, and it could either unite the team or rip it apart. Let's not forget TYREEK Hill is no stranger to controversy. His past off-field issues are well documented, and while he's done a good job keeping his name out of headlines in recent years, that old reputation hasn't fully disappeared. When things are going well, Hill is an energy boost, a morale lifter, the guy who keeps practices light and competitive. But when adversity hits, he's been known to show frustration at coaches, at teammates, even at the media. McDANIEL's comments might be his way of nipping a problem in the bud before it becomes a full-blown distraction. And that's a delicate dance. Push too hard and you alienate a star. Say too little and the problem festers. McDANIEL chose the middle ground, speak up just enough to spark accountability, but not so much that it becomes toxic. Still, you have to wonder how Hill will respond to being called out like this. Will TYREEK take this as constructive criticism or a personal attack? Knowing his personality, it could go either way. Hill thrives on confidence. He needs to feel like he's the man. Any threat to that ego could ignite friction. On the other hand, maybe this is the wake-up call he didn't know he needed. Maybe this lights a fire under him to lock in, recommit, and become not just the most dangerous receiver in football, but also the most dependable. That's the crossroads the Dolphins are at right now. And let's be real, this team's Super Bowl hopes hinge heavily on Hill being fully bought in. With a developing quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa and a competitive AFC landscape, they can't afford distractions. Not now. Not when they're this close to breaking through. McDaniel's gamble could define their season, for better or worse. And don't underestimate how this could affect the rest of the locker room. Players are watching. They're listening. If McDANIEL can call out a guy like TYREEK Hill, then everyone else is officially on notice. There's a standard in Miami now, and it applies to everyone. This could actually galvanize the team, especially the younger players who might have felt like there were different rules for the stars. On the flip side, if Hill starts pushing back or tuning out, that could open a rift. Teams don't implode over talent. They implode over ego and division. Right now, the Dolphins are walking a fine line between building something special and letting it all slip away. McDANIEL just raised the stakes, and we're about to find out how much this team is really built to handle adversity. Because talent can get you into the playoffs, but discipline, that's what wins in January. Let's also talk about the broader implications. McDaniel's move here could influence how other coaches handle their stars. The NFL is full of superstar receivers with larger-than-life personalities. From Stephon Diggs to Jamar Chase to Justin Jefferson, the league is stacked with elite talent that often comes with drama. What McDANIEL did sets a precedent. You can hold your best players accountable without losing them if you do it the right way. This could usher in a new era of player-coach relationships, especially as the power dynamic in the league continues to shift toward the players. McDANIEL is walking that tightrope between respect and authority, between friendship and leadership. And in doing so, he might be setting the blueprint for the next generation of NFL coaches. But first, he has to survive this moment and make sure Tyreek Hill is still on board when the season kicks off. So where does this leave the Dolphins? In a state of controlled turbulence, they've got the talent, the scheme, and the ambition. But they also have pressure, personalities, and now public tension. McDANIEL's comments about Hill being undisciplined aren't just about practice habits or playbook details. They're about trust, consistency, and alignment. This is about whether the Dolphins can truly become a team that wins when it matters most, because we've seen plenty of flashy teams fold under pressure. What separates the real contenders is what happens when the cameras aren't rolling. Can you show up on time? Can you lead by example? Can you put the team first when it really counts? That's what McDANIEL is asking from Hill. And if Hill answers the call, the Dolphins might just become the most dangerous team in the league. In the end, this story is far from over. We'll be watching training camp closely, looking for any signs of tension or progress. Will Hill show up early? Will he double down and make a statement with his actions? Or will this turn into a lingering issue that defines the 2025 Dolphins before the first snap is even played? One thing is certain, Mike McDaniel just made the Dolphins season must-watch television. And whether you love Tyreek Hill or think he needs a reality check, you gotta respect a coach willing to say the hard thing, even when it's uncomfortable. That's leadership, and that's how you find out what kind of team you really have. Buckle up, Dolphins fans. Things just got real. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.